Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today for Business Ego Juku. My name's Christy and I'm your host for today, so let's get started. Hi everyone and welcome back to Business Ego Juku. My name's Christy and I'm here with David Wagner.
Hello.
David, welcome back. As you know already, David is a business communications specialist and NHK host. Today's topic for session 8 is managing teleconferences. Now, this is a really widely discussed topic. When working, in a company that crosses different time zones or regions, all of us have to conduct business through a teleconference at one time or another. But I was raised in a family and at school to be very, very polite and let other people speak first. And when it comes to business, this cultural mindset is actually a huge setback for me. And I sometimes, don't get to say or don't say what I want to say during meetings. So my question to you is, what tips do you have to make sure I can get my thoughts heard during company-wide meetings?
Sure. So, the technology is changing pretty rapidly. It used to be, and still is, teleconferencing, which is really a verbal exchange instead of video. But now we have video conferencing and we've got Zoom and Teams and WebEx and all kinds of Meetup and all kinds of different technologies. So, teleconferencing is easier than video conferencing for obvious reasons because we don't have the visual. And a lot of Japanese tell me they don't like teleconferencing because they want to see the face. They want to read the atmosphere, and it's a handicap not to have that. So whether it's teleconferencing or video conferencing, there's a couple of tips I have. And let's take a look at some ideas here. So one of the things I always ask myself is, why do Japanese wait so long to respond in teleconferences? And you touched on this, which is, people just are taught that it's impolite or rude to interrupt. And that's really, really true. A lot of Japanese tell me I need time linguistically to move from English back to Japanese and translate and then move back into English again, which takes time. So whatever the reason, whether it's a cultural reason of being seen as rude or it's a language issue, it is something to be aware of as a time consumer. And also, how come Japanese don't cut in a lot? As again, you said, a lot of them don't have experience and it's not common practice in Japan. And in fact, cutting in for many Japanese is really difficult to do because the timing is something they're not familiar with, how to cut into somebody who's speaking rapidly in your second language. And the second thing is the ability to do so in a polite manner. So what I advise people to do is what I do myself, right? When I'm in the middle of a teleconference or a video conference and there's two people talking, I raise my voice to cut in, right? I'll say, excuse me, sorry, can I cut in here? And then I lower my voice and I use a question to cut in. And when I cut in, then I lower my voice and I speak in a normal tone. So it's not rude, really, to raise your voice initially, as long as you lower it back to normal.
Okay. So those are really good points. And I think the first thing that comes to mind when I hear, your tips for jumping into the conversation, it takes a lot of confidence, I think, in myself to find the personal audacity to just cut someone off or find, I guess it's kind of an essence thing, like find the right time in somebody's sentence to kind of pop in and say the excuse me type of thing.
Yep.
What are some
It's a timing issue, but it's a cultural issue too, because in Japan you have what's called joge kanke, which is hierarchical relationships. And there's a senpai and a kohai, a superior and a subordinate. And I think in the United States, when we're talking, we're all equal, even though, my boss is still up here and I'm down here, but it doesn't matter in terms of communication. At that moment, you're equal. So that eases a little bit of the concern. In Japan, it's still considered rude to do so. And you have to really wait for the right opening when there's a little bit of silence in the conversation. But the problem for Japanese, if you're in a global teleconference, you've got an Indian and a Russian and a Chinese and a Brazilian and an American talking really fast. If you wait, you lose. And Japanese often get slaughtered in these video conferences and teleconferences because they wait too long. So my advice is just push and try it out, test it out, be polite, raise your voice, use a question to cut in, see how it works for you.
Right. And I guess also if somebody maybe tries this out, right? They take this great advice and they try it out and it's kind of gotten some backlash. Is there a certain phrase you might throw in at the end if somebody's kind of taken aback that maybe gyakuni, they're not used to being kind of cut in on, right? If this is not a cultural thing that happens in Japan.
Well, I would flip it around a little bit. I would start at the beginning of the teleconference by telling the entire group, hey, everybody, English is not my native tongue, and I'm not really used to cutting in so much. So I'm going to try to cut in, and I don't mean to be rude, but if I do, please understand my intention. Explain it at the beginning, set it up as a framework.
That's a really good point. And I think that'll also help other people, not just you, right? If you're going to lay out the ground rules in the beginning, anyone else who's also coming in, maybe with English as a second language or Japanese as a second language in this,
right.
It works both ways. And so that's a really great tip. That's fantastic. Thank you.
Give it a try.
Yeah, everyone go give it a try. This is going to be tough for some of you, but for others, it might be the magic key to cutting in and getting your voice heard at meetings. So thanks again, David.
My pleasure.
Awesome. See you again.
See you soon.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to this week's session of Business Eigo Juku. We are going to have new videos every week, so be sure to check it out and stay tuned. See you next week. Bye.